So here we go. Part 2 of the new moon in Sidereal Virgo intention setting practice for September 28th, 2019. So if you have Aries rising, I'm just going to kind of jump right in and run right through these. If you have Aries rising, this is the 6th house new moon for you. So that's related to themes of work, of health, of your daily routine. The 6th house rules pets and employees. So service people and service animals is how we can explore that. But this has to do with schedules. It has to do with habits. It has to do with the mundane everyday life that you lead. And so when you have a new moon in that 6th house, it can be a really excellent opportunity to add in a healthy, good habit that you're trying to establish or wanting to establish in your life. So I would use maybe like a full moon to do something like quit smoking or to quit a bad habit, or to, like, say if you're trying to change your diet and get away from a particular type of food that you feel isn't good for you. I would eliminate things from your life during the full moon. This is the new moon. So this is where we want to bring in new healthy things. So if there's a new type of food that you're wanting to add into your diet, say like you're not getting enough leafy green vegetables and you want to begin making that a bigger part of your diet, well, use the new moon in your 6th house in Virgo. That's the perfect setup for doing something like that. You can also bring in, say, like a new, if you want to do some sort of daily exercise or physical activity, say you want to establish a new routine around that, or you want to add something to the routine that you already have. This is a new moon in that house. Perfect time. Especially, I would say, for instance, if you have Virgo in the 1st house and that's where your ascendant is, that's a great time to add in new physical activities. We'll get there. Right now we're talking about 6th house activities though. But for Aries, so that's a good recommended practice for using the 6th house new moon. If you have Taurus on the ascendant, then this will be a 5th house new moon for you. So that's creativity. It's children, it's love and romance, it's risk-taking ventures, things that we do for fun. And that includes sports, and that includes gambling, closely related to sports, right? So romance and true love. This isn't marriage and partnership. It's affairs of the heart, right? The 5th house is ruled by the sun. It's Leo. That's the heart, right? We know the expression lion-hearted. So it's the natural house of things that we do for pleasure. And it's also around creativity. So things that we give birth to, which can include children, but it can also include creative projects. It can also include crafts and hobbies, things that you build with your hands, right? If you have Gemini rising, this will be a 3rd house new moon for you, which is, 4th house new moon. So that's home and property. That's real estate. It has to do with the later life. It has to do with your parents, and that can be one or both parents, depending on your particular situation. But a new moon in the 4th house is, so if you're thinking about making a change to your home or to your living arrangements, you can begin the process or begin planning or exploring or data gathering, what have you, during the new moon phase. But this is a particularly excellent time to really be thinking about, well, what is it that I want and need in my ideal living arrangement? So get clear about it. Make a list of, say, all your deal breaker features around, what you need in a home. And go from there. Then you can kind of daydream and play around, well, what kind of experience do I want for my home and for my living arrangements? What would be ideal? And begin your manifestation practice from a point of opening up to possibility and being specific about how you want to experience your home life. For Cancer, it's going to be a 3rd house new moon. And so that's travel and communication. I had almost said that was Gemini before. And it's not, it's Cancer. So this is travel and communication that happens local too, right? So it's short distance travel. I would say anything within 500 miles qualifies. Your siblings, your neighbors, your extended family like aunts and uncles and cousins, those fall under the 3rd house. So you could say people and relationships to people that are close to you, either by proximity or just by the nature of the relationship. The 3rd house is really about your immediate environment and how you experience it and how you interact with it. And then in some Western systems, we associate the third house with education, especially childhood education. It has to do with the mind, our mental processes, our mental faculties, how we think. That's what the third house is descriptive of. And so for Cancer rising, this is where you're going to have your new moon. So this is an opportunity for short distance travel. It's an opportunity to potentially begin planning a trip if you're thinking about going someplace nearby for like just a short getaway. That's exactly the kind of travel that the third house would be describing. You could potentially get a new neighbor during a new moon in the third house, for instance. That's one way that this can express. Or you might hear from a sibling. If you have a sibling, you might hear from someone. Or they could come to visit, for instance. That might be something that you experience under this new moon. For Leo, it's a second house. So that's earned income, it's expenses, it's wealth and possessions, movable, tangible assets generally. It's money that you earn from the work that you do. The second house can also govern your expenses, and especially expenses related to your possessions, the buying and selling of possessions, that sort of thing. For Virgo, it's a first house new moon. So this is appearance and self-expression, right? The first house has to do with your identity and the physical body and how you look and how you behave, how you act, your mannerisms, your behavior, that sort of thing. When you have a new moon in your first house, though, it's a birthday new moon. And so it's kind of like a wild card new moon. You can use it however you like. While we have Venus in Virgo, that can be a good time to make changes to your appearance, especially right after a new moon. If Venus is in Virgo, it can be a fantastic time to update your look if you need to get a haircut or if you need to kind of freshen up your wardrobe, things like that. Those types of changes are well supported during a new moon in your first house, especially when you have Venus transiting that sign and transiting that house. So if that's you, go for it, because we have this nice, lovely little stellium supporting those types of changes. If you have Libra rising, this will be a 12th house new moon. So the 12th house has to do with your spiritual life. It has to do with privacy and seclusion. It has to do with things that you do when you're withdrawn from the world at large. The unconscious mind falls into the 12th house, our escapist tendencies, our addictions, all the bad behaviors, right? So with a new moon here, this is a time when you could begin a new spiritual path or spiritual journey, a new spiritual study. If you wanted to begin a meditation practice, new moon in the 12th house, if that's Virgo, there is an excellent time to begin a new meditation practice. If you have some sort of project that you need to do or have been thinking about doing, that's one that you would largely work on by yourself or that you would do in private while you're withdrawn from other people, those can start under a 12th house new moon. So this would be like if you have a home studio or if you're doing work just kind of independently out of the public eye. That's the type of work that we would be talking about with the 12th house new moon. For Scorpio rising, this is an 11th house new moon. And so that's friends, organizations, it's hopes and dreams, that sort of thing. I like the new moons in the 11th house because then you can make a start on a long-held hope or dream. And depending on the condition of the new moon, it can be particularly supportive for helping you manifest a dream that you have. If you have Sagittarius rising, this will be a 10th house new moon. So that's career and achievement. It's awards and recognition and status and reputation. It's your professional life, right? So a new moon here, if you have a particular career goal that you are determined to achieve, a new moon with a stellium in support of it can be a fantastic time, especially where that stellium can play out potentially and affect other areas of your life just by making this one career move, this one professional move. So whether that's a goal that you have that you're going to take an initiatory step to, an ambition that you're going to begin working towards, something that you want to create or do, or it doesn't really matter what it is. If it's something that you would move you forward professionally, now's the time to get serious and get specific about how do you want it to work out? What kind of outcome do you want for it? What results do you want? How do you want it to influence your career trajectory going forward? Get really, really specific about it, because this new moon is the best time to really take action toward it and get started, and to see the benefits of that in lots of areas of your life down the road. And so for Sagittarius, if that's you, I would definitely spend a good chunk of your mental energy getting specific about, what does that look like for me, right? What does that look like? For Capricorn, it's a 9th house. This is international affairs, it's travel, immigration, it's publishing, broadcasting, legal or higher education matters fall under the 9th house. Foreign people, foreign places, foreign cultures, foreign food, all that stuff. So this is the higher mind, the expansive mind, right? This is big picture thinking. This is philosophy and ideology. That's all 9th house. For Aquarius, it's an 8th house new moon. So that's related to other people's money. That's related to debts, potentially, right? Loans. But it's also related to windfall monies that come to you, and that can come to you through the forms of insurance payouts or tax refunds, or through wills or estates where something's been left to you. It can come through bonus or commission income, or winnings like lottery winnings, investment earnings. Those sorts of things fall under 8th house. But the 8th house is also related to death, to rebirth, to transformation, and metamorphosis, right? Change so dramatic and severe that it results in the total annihilation of whatever came before. That sounds really extreme, but that's really the type of change that we're talking about when we're talking about the 8th house. It's very extreme, dramatic, permanent change. Almost akin to eclipse type change, I would say, when we're talking about the 8th house, right? Permanent metamorphosis. For Pisces, we're talking about a 7th house new moon. So partnership and marriage, business, relationships with other people. This includes our open enemies. That's something that we don't always talk about. One thing we do talk about is that the 7th house can describe, especially when we're talking about the descendant, what we reject about ourselves, like the negative qualities that we don't want to acknowledge. And when we are encountering those types of things, we tend to project them onto other people as a way of dealing with them or coping with them, because we can't process them internally in necessarily in a healthy way. And so we project them onto other people and then react to that projection. And that's what the descendant ascendant axis kind of describes. Hi, Elizabeth. It's good to see you with us. So we're just finishing up the houses and themes of each house by rising sign. So if you know your sidereal rising sign, Elizabeth, I can recap what that is for you. If you want to let me know in the comments what your rising sign is. And then what we're going to do is we're about to move on to part 3. And in part 3 of the broadcast, we're going to explore more in depth the archetypes and themes of Virgo. And I have some prompts for kind of giving you some things to think about and consider as you set your intentions around the outcome that you would like to manifest from this particular new moon. And one of the things that I'll kind of recap here, we talked about in the first part of the broadcast related to what the astrology of this particular new moon is like. I'm really encouraging everyone to take advantage of it and to set an intention and to get specific and to have a visualization around what it is you want to manifest because of the stellium that we have going on in Virgo. So the outcome of a new or a full moon is determined by the condition of the ruler, right? In this case, our ruler is Mercury. And Mercury is really well supported by having the sun and the moon and Venus and Mercury and Mars all in Virgo at the same time. So we have the support of all of these planets right after the new moon, which is a perfect time to make an initiation. And then what happens is, as the new moon plays out and we manifest the results of the activities that we begin right now, those results will also then have an effect on all the houses ruled by that collection of planets. So wherever you have Leo, wherever you have Cancer, wherever you have Mercury and, Gemini and Virgo, wherever you have Taurus and Libra, wherever you have Aries, wherever you have Scorpio, all of those houses are going to be feeling the effects of whatever outcome results from this particular new moon and the actions that you take in conjunction with it. And so that's one thing I really kind of want to underscore, especially for anyone who's joining us late. This is kind of a significant full new moon in that regard. And I would encourage you, take advantage of it, because it will have so much influence. And if you have time, do it again for your sun sign, because then you can tap into all that extra support and all that extra positive influence for your solar chart as well, and for your solar houses that are ruled by the sun, by the moon, by Mercury, by Venus, and by Mars. So a lot going on with this new moon. And don't let it go to waste is what I'm going to say right there. I'm going to just underscore that. Don't let it go to waste. But that really wraps up part 2 for the houses and the themes of each house for each of you according to your sidereal rising sign.